Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, just before we begin, I wanted to show some Bible verses here that says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. But I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head." And then go down further. A man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. So woman is the glory of man. "Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet." Then they can urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, and to be subject to their husbands, so that no one will malign the word of God. "Wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Likewise, you husbands, live considerately with your wives, bestowing honor on the woman as the weaker sex, since you are joint heirs of the grace of life, in order that your prayers may not be hindered." And then this one here, "I would sooner keep a house with a lion or a dragon than keep a house with a spiteful wife. A woman's spite changes her appearance and makes her face as grim as a bear's. When her husband goes out to dinner with his neighbors, he cannot help heaving bitter sighs. No spite can approach the spite of a woman. May a sinner's lot be hers, like the climbing of a sandhill for elderly feet. Such is a garrulous wife for a quiet husband. Do not be taken in by a woman's beauty. Never lose your head over a woman. Bad temper, insolence, and shame hold sway where the wife supports the husband. Low spirits, gloomy face, stricken heart, such is a spiteful wife. Slack hands and sagging knees, such is the wife who does not make her husband happy. Sin began with a woman, and thanks to her we must all die. Do not let water find a leak, nor a spiteful woman give free rein to her tongue." Proverbs 31:27. "She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety." So, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. I said those Bible verses because it's important for us to refresh our brains on some biblical stances concerning female conduct, and to remind ourselves that Christianity is a patriarchal faith. Men are the leaders of women. Okay? Roma Army here writes, "Anyone who thinks that women shouldn't lead because the Bible put men above women are cherry-picking the scriptures. And they're a effing idiot. You can't be a holy man and believe the women shouldn't lead, considering God appointed 12 women in the Bible to lead his people." Now, I'm going to come at this from many angles, because the thing is, what she considers holy, I would think is unholy. She's got a tattoo on her neck of an upside down cross that she hasn't gotten removed. And she can give me a bunch of excuses on why she keeps it and different interpretations and whatnot, but the fact of the matter is it is linked to occultism to have a cross that way, and people used to be tortured that way. So, again, you don't need to have that on your neck. She could get it covered. She wears a cross around her neck while having a tattoo of an upside down cross. The one that is more permanent upon her body reflects more of her personality. Okay, so she should be quite cautious in her conduct. Further, she's not a student of knowledge, nor does she try to be, nor does she try to study theology. I haven't seen any evidence of that. Not saying that she has to have evidence for me to not mention it, but she's not somebody who is a scholar or trying to be a scholar. I doubt she's even read the Bible once. It's just not accurate, okay? It doesn't make sense at all, what she's getting at here. Because Christian men are supposed to lead their women, as we saw. And a lot of women like her, she's grown up with a lot of trauma. She grew up in foster care. She ran away from, it was foster care, but then I remember she got adopted or something and ran away. She's had a lot of sexual trauma. She has made adult content, and she also thirst traps men. And I have argued in the past against her that a woman who thirst traps you shouldn't lead you, and she doesn't want your benefit because she's helping you to sin and lust, right? So, to me, if you look at Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, on the wives of the Prophet, peace be upon him, they're all modest. Look at Mary, she wasn't out being lewd. A woman's clothing and her conduct signify much within her heart. Yeah, you can repent, but you were fallen. And until you spend years fixing that, you're gonna, need to be silent. And she still shows her cleavage when she goes on podcasts and when she does her stream. And I do believe she still posts thirst trap content on her Patreon. So, if a woman leads with sexuality, she's manipulating men. And sexual immorality and sexual depravity is what leads a lot of men astray. She cannot be a leader of men because she thirst traps two married men. So, she betrays women by thirst trapping their husbands, and by getting their sons to put their hands in their pants and be a creep. She helps men to not keep their hands out of their pants. Let's put it PG, right? She's helping men to be creepy, to funnel them into OF content, and she's not using her brain and intelligence to get people to sub to her Patreon, but rather is luring them with sexuality, which is a cultic behavior and a sin. And this is why, a lot of women shouldn't lead, because they lead with sexuality. And sexuality and beauty and allure are tools that women use to manipulate men for things in their favor. Whereas when a woman is covered, or she's modest, she speaks more direct facts and is taken more seriously, and her body isn't distracting those who she speaks to. And a lot of women will pretend like a woman's sexuality doesn't affect the environment when you're speaking to them. But when I was a waiter and a woman has it all hanging out, it's a little bit awkward. And then when women notice you not noticing them, even though they got it all hanging out, their self-esteem gets low. And it's a vicious cycle, because they're seeking validation, but if you don't validate them, they feel ugly. It's really quite strange. Now, there are exceptions, like very artistic, very vogue women or goth girls. They don't care what anyone thinks, and I believe them, because they're doing what they want to do, and they're dressing how they want to dress. But there are plenty of women who are actually puppets to other people's assessments of them. And those women often lead with sexuality. And so they're not fit to be leaders. And now that I'm getting older, now remember, Chloe has 2 baby daddies. And she's dating another guy, and she often records herself doing a live smoking weed. So she uses intoxicants, right? Okay, can't lead. You're donezo. A woman who uses intoxicants is 2 steps away from being a crazy crackhead mumbling to herself on the corner. Can't have it, sorry. You're irrational. We women are already hyper irrational at times. We have moments of strength and weaknesses. Our hormones are deeply spiritual and linked to us. Not to say that men don't have problems, but testosterone is different than estrogen. And Roma was somebody who believes in the cross-dressing eunuchs. She was one of their defenders. So at one minute she's calling herself a men's rights activist, and then turns around and thinks that a man can be a woman if only they wear a wig and get some silicone bag stitched to their body and become a eunuch. She's a very confused individual. She has quite a lot of mental trauma. She's quite a broken soul, and she should really not try to lead anybody. I know that can sting, because she's had to be tough. She says she's an ex-gangbanger, but I don't really believe her, because she doesn't have that energy, that aura, that vibe of an ex-gangbanger, in my opinion. Not that I'm the end-all be-all, just that I was one myself. She has more of the runaway, skanky girl who would get passed around more than someone who was into fighting, you know? I mean, she calls herself Roma, which the Roma gypsies, so she has more of that energy than a chola from East LA, or someone from Philly, or Oakland. You see what I mean? It just... Maybe I just have a bias towards the Chicana vibe. Maybe towards the Latina side when it comes to expression of gang culture. But I don't see it. I don't really see her as somebody who was ever serious in that life, and who's fully left it, because I think if you fully leave it, you wage war against it. Which is what I've done. I've made videos telling people to leave the gang life this Ramadan. It's not an easy thing to leave, and it's something to be deeply ashamed of. And I don't bring it up really anymore, because sometimes by bringing it up, you're almost flexing. You're almost going back to your old behavior. You're trying to be bullheaded, you're trying to goat people, you're trying to be provocative, intimidating, threatening. And you have to just watch when you mention it and how much you mention it. And so, for her, it's hard. Let's break it down. It's hard for someone like her to want to let men lead, because gangbangers, they're women who have not been socialized properly. They've been socialized in the opposite direction. They've been socialized to get in men's business, to be used by men for intimacy, for drug muling, for being like a missile where you just go and fight whoever they tell you to fight. Basically being used for evil. That's pretty much what a gangbanger woman does. She spreads evil in the world. She becomes the inverted nature of femaleness. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, she becomes a fake, poor imitation of the male energy. She becomes very masculine, and she loses so much of her femininity that she becomes a soldada, like a soldier. Whereas the hyenas, who are skanky, trampy girls who have pencil eyebrows and lip liner and use too much hairspray, they get passed around for recreation. They think they're part of the gang, but they're just there to fill the void and be mounted and given drugs to placate them for their time. But a soldada has a lot of mental trauma she has to get over, and a lot of girls who go into gangs and become the soldadas were molested, or something deeply traumatic happened to them in their childhood, and they have father issues. So we shouldn't lead men until we really fix ourselves, and that's not going to happen for most women. Because gang women will also submit to the higher male authority who out-dominates her, and most will out-dominate a woman in the gang field, and she will fall in line. So she can't really lead men because she would fold like a lawn chair once a real man comes through. And I'm not talking about chivalrous men. I'm talking about men who have the darker energy. They don't care if you're a woman, they'll remove your teeth. At the end of the day, a woman can't really lead men because there are men who they do not have mercy just because you are a woman. It's the good men who have this sort of manners towards you because you're a woman. But once you start to get into the rough, tough world, those rules go out the window. That's why they are word women, and you're going to see a lot of things you wish you didn't see, and then you realize the earth is filled with men who are not going to have mercy on you just because you're a woman, and when warfare happens, you're an easy target, and you're a liability, and you're not fit for that role. And to lead men where? Well, militarily, are you going to be more strategic? Can you carry as much as the men? We watch too many super movies. This doesn't mean you can't learn self-defense, because I'm all about self-defense and the Second Amendment and, build a good, strong fence, have a guard dog. I have a security mindset, as you well know. But now that I'm getting older, I'm not a grandma yet, but I feel like I'm becoming a babushka. And once you get into your babushka energy era, you get tired. You're just like, nah, let a man deal with it. And I think that's when you wake up as a woman. Is when you're so comfortable now in your femininity, you've, therapized yourself, that you say, let a man handle it. I'm not dealing with that. And now I realize, okay, when the men are arguing, I'm out of it. I'm getting up from my chair. I'm going to go somewhere else. Let the men talk. Okay, now if man comes to you in private in halal conditions and asks for an input, quite different. But I have really learned a big difference from when I was younger, like 18, you put your nose right in with the male drama. And you're going to catch a stray acting like that. Don't get involved with male business. And it makes me think about how I was watching a video. There was these two bulls going at it. One was a little older, chestnut, he had horns, but the melon head Angus bull, he doesn't have horns, and he's pushing down the older one who has horns, and he pushed him into like a little puddle. It's like a bog, like a marsh type of little spot, and he wouldn't let the older one get up after he pushed him into the ground, and his nostrils were in the, like, one's in the water, one's not, so he's getting water in his lungs. And he would have, deleted him, let's put it that way, ended him, had not the rancher came and, got on his four-wheeler and did what he had to do to get them to separate. And even an experienced rancher knows how hard it is to manage those bulls when they go at it. Now imagine a female rancher in there with her dainty little hands and her stupid hat and a little fake boots, and she's like, stop it, and trying to control these fully testosterone bulls that if they step on your toes, crunch. If they turn on you and charge you, you're done. And then she'd be screaming for a man to help. Not that a man wouldn't call for help, but that the man would at least have a little bit more strength when it comes to trying to push that bull off of your rib cage. So again, that's why you don't see that who has female bullfighters. But the point is, there's jobs for men, there's purposes for men that don't involve women. And when women are too masculine, they're trying to get involved in these two bulls going at it. And you gotta sometimes just let it play out. But that's ego. You gotta check your ego and say, I'm not so self-important that I gotta be a busybody getting in everyone's business. Because a lot of women think to be a leader means to be a busybody. You gotta nanny men. You gotta pester them. You gotta insert yourself into their business. And this causes a lot of resentment. And it makes us have more arrogance. Like, a man lead me? Oh no, I don't need no man. I'll lead myself. And then, I don't have a dad and I messed up and I made bad decisions when it came to dating. As Roma did. Roma didn't have a good dad, from what I remember, and she made bad choices in men. She was on birth control with her second and still got pregnant, so she says. Do I believe her? Not really. Because it is still quite rare to get pregnant on birth control. Either way, the guy still didn't want to be with her, so she was given the goods, given the dairy, to someone who didn't want to wife her up. Not that she's wife material. Okay? Now, she has passion for men who are being oppressed by some feminists. But she's not far from a feminist, right? Because you got to be sort of a feministic person and to be in the gang life in general. Because you've inverted the traditional Christian or Islamic role, the traditional role, right? Of what it means to be a woman. Because she told us in the past the reason why she got all tatted up because she didn't want to be another pretty face. So she decorated herself in her trauma. I have tattoos, and tattoos are like a permanent reminder for me, a memorial, a sort of hieroglyph type of energy to remind me of what to do and what not to do, because I need that, because I can see I'm so broken sometimes that I can repeat the same bad habits and wonder why I'm doing it. So because I don't have someone personally checking me, like a father, older brothers, to be like, hey, you can't do this because I'm the oldest. I don't have that male patriarchal energy around me shepherding me, that I have to put permanent reminders on my body to be like, hey, remember this? Don't do it, So art has a symbolic meaning for me. Her tattoos are more pattern and different. But mine are sort of patches of trauma as a sort of metaphysical reminder. Still, I don't want my kids to have tattoos. If I could go back, I wouldn't get any tattoos. But I'm just explaining the little difference between mine and hers. But either way, I'm admitting that tattoos are a form of mental trauma. I know there's going to be someone who says, I got a hummingbird on my ankle. What are you talking about? The fact that you want to lay down and have someone scar up your skin, and it's going to be there forever, and you're going to see it forever. Yeah, you can be mindless, Bugs Bunny getting whatever you want. But that just shows you're an idiot. Because if you're getting something permanent on your body and it doesn't have any significance, you're just proving that you are stupid and that you do need someone to guide you and take care of you. But a lot of people admit that they get tattoos after a traumatic event. Sure, some get wedding dates, some get the dates of my stepmom got my brother's birthday on her arm. I understand some celebratory events occur. Some women get their baby's feet imprints on their body, right? But a lot of people, if you sat them down and they talked about it, those who love ink are often traumatized individuals. And there's a whole conversation around that. So Chloe is clearly broken. She shouldn't be leading anybody. Okay, I'm not saying that she's trying to say here, that she should lead, but she does try to lead. She literally calls it the Roma army. She sees herself leading an army. A digital army, mind you. But she went against Trumpies. She went against the Kyle Rittenhouse fans. So she goes against a lot of traditional masculinity. She kind of encourages men to be weak, to cry, not to bottle up their emotions. Sure, we got to be, not super rigid. The Prophet, peace be upon him, has a hadith where he mentions, that shows affection towards Hassan and Hussein. And was it a Bedouin who said they don't ever kiss their children, and he mentions how if there's not mercy in your heart, that's... Long story short. Point is, we know that you're not weak because you shed a tear for a valid reason. But if you're an emotional wreck, and you're bawling all the time, and you're a mess, and you can't handle pressure, well, that's going to be a problem. Because women say they want a man who cries, but when he does, they get the ick. And they're like, oh my gosh, this guy is crying. It depends. Like, if a man sheds a tear for his friend at his funeral, or his grandpa died, or something, his favorite horse was attacked by a mountain lion or something, and he's like, dang, I really like that horse. Quite different, isn't it? But if someone's just being too emotional because their favorite pair of shoes were not there in the store, that's a problem, right? We can see young men not being able to manage their emotions properly, and that's becoming a huge issue because a man has to be emotionally stable. And what Chloe sees as mental stability in men is quite different from the biblical or Islamic standpoint. And she is quite liberal, admittedly. So, I find it odd that her as a liberal is pretending like she knows anything about gender roles in the Bible, and where she thinks that it's a biblical value for women to lead men. She hasn't got a lot of wisdom, really. She has a lot of emotional, like if you see her video style, she's very like, can you believe this woman said this and that? And she's in her bathroom, and she moves the cell phone in a Jerry Springer type of way, zooming in, zooming out. There's an anxiety there. She knows she has to pour it on quick due to the short attention span. It's the TikTok editing style. She has to settle her soul. She has to calm herself. She needs to be more stoic. She needs to think before she speaks. Let the men lead. Okay? Who's watching her kids while she's getting high? She can't even stop getting high in order to be with her kids. Did she purposely, go and say just like a relative or a friend, watch my kids so I can get high and do a live stream with my boyfriend? Think about it. She can't get off intoxicants, but she wants to lead. She can't manage her own pain, her own mental anguish. She has to escape her own consciousness with intoxicants, but she thinks that she can lead men. And cherry picking, very convenient. See, it's the reformist Christians of the modern era who have confused what women are supposed to do because feminism is a secular liberal atheist value. She doesn't have any idea what makes a holy man because she's never had one. And she doesn't hang around with those kinds of men. Nor does she attract that type of energy around her. She has a very raunchy, trailer trash vibe. She may have money, but she's still slanging her body. She's had 2 kids and she can't retire her body. Think about that. That's a woman who is very broken. You've produced 2 souls into this world. And I remember after she had her second kid, she went and posted up a picture like, look how good my body is after a baby. And all of us moms, I swear, we know your uterus hasn't shrunk that fast, darling. What you did was you kept a picture from before you were pregnant and then posted it afterwards. And you wanted to do that to maintain the men in your Patreon. You didn't want them to unsub because you had a mom body, okay? Because you have a kangaroo pouch, okay? We know what you're doing here, okay? She was ashamed of the mom body after birth. She didn't even give her body time to really heal. She was very quick to say, look, I'm still effable. I'm a MILF. That was her focus. So quick after having a baby. Broken woman. A woman who is still stuck on her outer appearance. She's got lots of mental trauma. And she's deeply confused. She shouldn't be lecturing anyone on Christianity, theology, what a man is, let alone what a holy man is. I mean, think about it. It's hard enough to say what a top male is or a masculine man is. It's such a broad conversation. And I would never want to be with someone who Chloe thought was a great man because look at the type of men she chose to breed with and mate with. Okay? She was filming herself create adult content, which I have seen, unfortunately, because as I've scrolled in the past, her simps post it, and it didn't get a covering on it, and it autoplays, and you're like, alrighty then? Whoa. Gotta wash my balls. But she led with her body. The only way she can get men to pay attention to her is to show her body. So she's still attached to her flesh. She's not really turning inward towards the soul, towards what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mother, a wife, a human. She's leading with the flesh. She doesn't have this higher wisdom. She's not seeking knowledge. She shouldn't lead anybody, and she doesn't have the perception tuned enough to even say what a holy man is. Okay? Women should not lead. I know it's hard for the feminist mindset, but it has to be said. You can't lead. And there's going to be, like, okay, she's never been married, from my understanding. But when you've been with someone and you're taking care of your newborn, you want your husband to do what he got to do. Go to the DMV, okay, fix the truck, handle business. I'm too busy for this. I'm taking care of the baby. I'm breastfeeding in the night. I got things to do. Okay, I gotta go shower. I don't want to deal with the landscaping. I don't want to deal with any of that right now. I want to recline in my feminine energy, nurse my baby, cuddle with my baby, let the man fight the world. Alright? That's what a lot of women would resonate more with. But Chloe here, once you get your strength back, all of a sudden your brain goes back to that feminist mindset and you gotta fight it. If you don't have to go into survival mode of like Xena warrior mode, oh, I gotta go out there and fight, I gotta Tawanda, I gotta be in Amazonia. Let it go in the backlog of your brain. Be present, be feminine, be charming, be soft. Regulate yourself. Okay, put some damn clothes on. Relax. But again, that's not clothes energy. And because she doesn't have that energy, she can't spiritually lead men. She's leading them through the flesh. And the flesh is something that isn't permanent. And the flesh will lead you astray. Clearly. So, she's lost in the sauce. Her debate's coming up with Andrew Wilson. She's not... She's just gonna get crushed like another OnlyFans chick. She's not... I really don't think she's gonna do well. She's going up against somebody who knows way more about the Christian religion than her. And who's way more experienced in rhetoric and philosophy in general. And she's just gonna make a fool of herself. She should study, I really think so. She has passion. She's got passion, but she's got to learn to control her emotions. And, man, she doesn't even think Christianity is a patriarchal religion. Not saying that in a patriarchal system there won't be some women who rise to the top and lead, but it's just not a good thing. It's unpopular to say amongst liberals, but you just got to be careful with who you're leading, where you're leading to, and you got to know when to give up leadership as well. Think about George Washington. He gave up his position. He didn't stay as a dictator or a king. Even in fiction, Jon Snow didn't want the throne. Daenerys Targaryen wanted the throne so bad she torched King's Landing because she couldn't control her anger because Cersei lopped the head off her best friend. And then she turned everyone against her when she tried to be the queen. Something to think about. Not saying men don't wage war, but it's quite different. Or you think in House of the Dragon, where Rhaenyra, she's trying to be the leader. She has so much stress and sadness and tension that she, unfortunately, astaghfirullah, has a miscarriage. See, when we're pregnant, when we are recovering postpartum, we really do see that we are the weaker sex. Our body is strong in the terms of we're creating a human being, but our brains are like, oh, we're exhausted, let's just focus on this. And when women try to do too much, they're trying to be an octopus, gotta be here, gotta be there, got a tentacle over there. You get spread way too thin, you're more snappy, you're burnt out, you're tired, you're exhausted. You're not feminine. You just have a gray light to you. You're not very cheerful. You're not fun to be around. You're moody. Okay? You can see this because we're overextending ourselves. And when women can conserve their energy and put it in proper places where they feel rejuvenated and they're not trying to boss everyone around, especially men, then you feel more energized. Herding chickens is a lot easier than herding bulls, right? One requires brute strength, one requires more of put some little corn on the ground and then close the gate. Easier, right? And the more testosterone you're dealing with, the harder it is to manage them. Look how so many female cops, they can't even handle a skinny-bodied, drunk suspect who's wrestling them. And the woman will be fat and she still can't handle it. How many times are we catching women who are in the military sleeping around with those within their ranks? And it's like, okay, we gotta, you guys need to be focused on combat readiness. The woman is a distraction, a sexual distraction. And it's just, so many women they're not ready to have this conversation because it takes a lot of courage to look at your energy, to see that men and women are different, and to say, nah, I really don't want to immerse myself in the male world. And that's not saying that you have to force yourself to be around the vapid, vain women. It just means that you have to be honest about your own limitations, your own failures, and where you belong. Chloe doesn't know where she belongs. And I hope that she finds it, inshallah. May Allah guide her to Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from such misguidance. Join the blog. Ameen.